Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. Well, in honor of the fact that this is the last day of the second quarter, I thought I would take this opportunity and put together several pieces of information and some updates that I've learned over the last week or so and present that here to give you up to date and also help us set up the beginning of the next quarter. There are a lot of changes coming up with Giga Texas and production. You've been seeing a lot of that with the equipment being delivered and what I've showed you with the assembly of the general assembly lines 2 and 3 and a bunch of the other changes of production. But now I'd like to talk a little bit about manpower and the employees and what the changes are going to be, and also some new information about some suppliers. So let's start first with some of the changes coming up with Model Y production. Now, beginning of July, for about a 5-day period of time, Giga Texas's Model Y production will come to a stop. They're going to be doing a series of upgrades with equipment and tooling to help improve the efficiency of these lines. Now, at the same time, Giga Texas is going to be changing its shift work policy, and they're going to be moving away from swing shifts, and they're just going to be adopting day and night shifts only. And this is going to be taking into effect right after the production lines upgrades are completed, and as you can imagine, it's very popular with the employees. Now, because of all the upgrades and some of the changes in the work shift schedule, expect the Model Y production initially to have a slower rate than we've seen as production lines, equipment, and layouts come up to speed. But after that short period of time, expect the production rate of Model Ys to increase, meaning more Model Ys produced per period of time. And what we'll see is an increase well above the current 5,000 Model Ys per week rate that they recently achieved. Now, also, with the change in shifts, some of the personnel that were in the swing shift are being redirected over to the Cyber production lines, and they'll be doing this to help finalize testing, calibration, and get the lines into production status. And this is expected to take most of July and into the early part of August. So, great news. So as they prepare to increase the production rate of Model Ys, they're also getting ready to ramp up and start the Cybertruck production. To do that, they have 2 sites or suppliers just south of Austin in Kyle, Texas, about 20 miles or 32 kilometers from Giga Texas. And there's actually 2 companies that are supporting Tesla, and they're in the same basic business complex, and they have very large buildings there. One of these companies and suppliers is Plasticon, and the other is Simwan North America, which is a South Korean company. The sites and the suppliers are reported to produce seats, door components, other sub-assemblies, and I'll give you some examples of that in a little bit. The 2 suppliers will also be supporting both the Model Y and Cybertruck production, and there's going to be some potential movement of Tesla employees from Giga Texas down to these locations to help as the production of the Model Y increases and also Cybertruck begins. Now, here are some examples of the parts that can be made and are being made by these companies down at Kyle, Texas for Giga Texas. And in addition to the seats, door components, and interior pieces, here is a good list. You can pause the screen if you want to take a look at it, but it gives you an idea of the kinds of equipment and components that these companies are making for Giga Texas just to the southwest. And here's a map to give you an idea of what this looks like. In that map on the left, in the upper right-hand corner, that star is Giga Texas, and you can see the line down to the lower left-hand corner star. That's where that site is located. It's about 20 miles or 32 kilometers. And the inset photo gives you a bird's eye view of what these 2 structures look like. Now, Jeff Roberts was able to take some of his time to go out to that site on the 29th of June. So thank you very much, Jeff Roberts, for these ground level photos. It's really outstanding. The panoramic one gives you a really good idea of what this looks like. And then you can see the 2 companies with the arrows showing which facilities are theirs. Now, Jeff was also able to briefly go inside the Plasticon building and took these pictures, and this gives you a good idea of what they look like inside. And now, interestingly enough, Plasticon is also a worldwide leader in battery pack technology, and you can see the link here, and you can check that out for more information. I just want to say thank you very much to Jeff Roberts for taking his time to go out and getting these great images and some of the additional information that I passed along to you. So thank you very much, Jeff. So wrapping up what we talked about, there's some big changes going on at Giga Texas. In addition to all of the equipment and the production lines being set up, it's also affecting the workers, and also they're taking this opportunity to upgrade the Model Y production lines to increase the production. Now, as Cybertruck production is looming, we also talked about some more of the suppliers that provide some very interesting and key components for the Cybertruck and where they're located. So I hope that you enjoyed this information and it gives you an idea of what we can look forward to in the next couple of months at Giga Texas and as the excitement builds with Cybertruck looming. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. So let's get into the drone and let's fly around the site and see what it looks like today. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, happy last day of the second quarter here at Giga Texas, and there is a lot to see today, so we're going to be going at a fairly rapid pace through this video. We're starting off on the east side over this small pond just east of the stamping machine structure because I want to show you what this area looks like at a slightly lower altitude. Also, on the left-hand side where the parking lot is, you can see more of the contractor trailers, and just north of this clearing, you can see more of the contractor trailers have been placed, and it also looks like we may start seeing some construction in this particular location. As we get closer to those trailers, you'll note that there's some sections that have slightly different color gravel. I think those are parking lots and also possibly lots where we'll see materials. And I think that this may be related to that multi-level parking garage construction that's soon to get underway in this location. And as I turn back towards the building, great lighting today. So it's going to be a really good views on this east side. But this just gives you another view of these trailers and this staging and parking lot on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, as we return back towards the building, I'm going to stay at a slightly lower altitude using the lighting to give you a good look at the activity on this side of the body in white and also the stamping machine portions of Giga Texas. And as you can see, a lot of materials on the ground, crates that are continuing to be broken down after their contents have been delivered inside. And then here, more deliveries with these white platforms, white wrapped items, and a truck is unloading even more of these items. And I think these are all destined for the stamping 2 on that south side. Here we also see the road work at the middle of the screen, some trenches going across it and then around that section. Some of that's for conduit. I think some of it may be for the curbs, but also the median in the middle and just preparing this section for that gravel and then eventually paving. And this is a really good view of this sort of an intersection with the road heading off to the north and how the factory looks from this vantage point today. So I'm going to look back down on the ground. I want to show you the rebar cages for some of the footings on the ground. It looks like they are continuing to make more of them. A lot of rebar is waiting for the crews to make those footings nearby. A good view of the crates on the bottom of the screen that have some of the parts that have been delivered, and also some of them are being broken down. The pipes here on this corner and this section, how it looks today, and then looking across the site, you can tell the cranes for the continuous flight auger piers are still waiting for work. The white and blue crane on the left is what was used to remove the wall panels. Looks like there's some trucks making some deliveries and quite a bit of equipment and contractor vehicles now on the left-hand side of the screen. As I bring the drone down and we look into the open section of Stamping 2, you can tell that they're putting a temporary wall in using some of that scaffolding material and also the plastic wrap. Now this is most likely to protect the machinery inside and try to keep the dust down and kind of make an interior wall to let that section continue to operate while they are extending the building. And here's a really good view into the west bay and how it looks today. At the far end, you can see there's another one of these temporary walls that is made up out of the scaffolding and plastic. because beyond that, there's even more materials and equipment, and it's also where the driveline section internally was expanded. Now, as I bring the drone up a little higher altitude, I'll give you a view of how the roof section looks today. The entire south section with the columns and the beams have been removed, so now you can see it looks a little inset into the structure, and that's just to prepare for the extension onto the south side. Here's a good view looking back over the entire site, and because of the location of the sun, I'm going to keep the drone faced towards the west, and we're going to come down and take a look at River Road, with most of the asphalt have already been poured here. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you can tell that most of the materials have been removed as well, including the pallets of solar panels. So this entire section is really being cleaned out, and I think that has to do with the construction on the south end that's about to begin. Also, somewhat of a intersection has been made here with more of the asphalt for connecting that River Road extension to this section here. And of course, River Road continues underneath this south bridge, and we're going to cross over the highway, and I'll resume the narration, and we'll take a look at how this side looks today. Now, this is that west warehouse on wheel with all of the trailers. It does look to me like there's more trailers and this is more used than the east side warehouse on wheels, and that may be the ultimate plan. You can see the concrete debris piles here have been reduced. Now there's just about 3 of them remaining, and this is being prepared for moving off site for recycling and just disposal so they can continue this construction. This is a good view of the amount of materials that has been moved over to this new large material storage location. Looks like there's white components for assembly lines, some blue and green wrapped items on the left, and then we have these crates with the blue tops. Now, normally these are related to stamping machines, so this may be items that's going to eventually go into the stamping too. So it's really neat to see that. You can tell that they're using some of these planters to mark off this kind of an entrance to that section, and then more of the trailers and materials here on this north end of that material staging location. If you look towards the north, you can see how the road work is continuing to develop, and more of the excavation right along the housing on that tree bolt side on the upper left-hand side of the screen. And then this large area, how this grade is appearing and how they're continuing to prepare this to extend this warehouse and wheels all the way up to the north, as you can tell. And there's a lot of earthwork machinery at work right now, continuing to level out that grade. So as I pull back, this will be a good view again of how the entire side looks, and then we'll resume the flight on the other side of the highway. Here's a good view of the south end with those orange man lifts and other equipment on the right-hand side of the screen. A lot more rebar coming underneath the drone and materials for the CFA auger pier drilling system. And then here, crews are busy with this underground cistern or well. They're putting an access point in for plumbing, most likely for a drain. And that white pipe on the left gives you kind of an idea what that may look like. You can also see the company in that red kind of trailer of who's doing the work here, and also just a good view of how this is progressing today. So a lot of work on that particular well to allow for drainage at some point in the future. Now here at the temporary platform, we see some deliveries on the truck on the bottom left. Some other very interesting deliveries here in this white packaging. I'm not exactly sure what this is at the time of this video, but I'll try to research this and be able to report what that is on the next video. As we continue going towards the north, one of the things I'm going to show you is this material staging on the left has had a lot more materials. In fact, there's a large truck delivering these red and blue wrapped items. It's really hard to tell what they are other than the fact that they are large. And this may be more of those kind of red frames that we've seen delivered that are part of some of the General Assembly production line, but it's hard to tell right now. I'm going to approach over towards the west main entrance. We'll first start here with this truck and trailer. More of that stainless steel cladding has been delivered. And then as we proceed up over towards the actual main entrance, you can tell that the plywood is on the ground to protect the concrete, and the workers are very busy attaching more of the stainless steel cladding. The two kind of beams next to the glass now have that stainless steel in the middle, and that gives you an idea of how this is going to look. I think once this is all completed, it's going to be a really striking, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that trapezoidal shape on the ground. Here we see more of these white items next to the end of line. Now, as we talked about in the intro, they're going to be shutting down production for about 5 days in early July, and they may be using that material that we saw on the ground to be installed into general assembly during that period when they're doing upgrades of the equipment and some of the lines. As we continue to fly towards the north, a couple of interesting deliveries here at the 4680 battery cell site. Looks like these yellow boxes. I don't know if these are small generators or some other type of equipment. Also, we can see a blue self-propelled modular transporter in that area as well. As I turn around the northwest corner, just give you an idea that the stain work that has been applied is now completed on this angled corner. And they're removing some of the plastic on the windows on the left-hand side, and they're preparing to start working on the north side. They're putting a lot of the plastic around those doors, some of the windows, and tarps on the ground so they can continue to extend this. Also, interestingly, you can see those two steel beams on the ground. Not exactly sure what those are for, but those arrived about 2 days ago, and I'm trying to monitor to see if those are part of some sort of construction on the inside. Here's something very interesting that I honestly didn't notice when I was flying the drone, but this accordion truck is bringing some very interestingly shaped item underneath that tarp. And I can't say exactly what it is, but I wish that I had noticed it while I was flying the drone, and I could have put some more time taking a look at that for you, but I kind of missed it. Sorry about that. But as I pull away from the building, I'm just giving you a good view here of the rack mounts for the castings on this northern parking lot that's been prepared for that. And then also this grouping of crepe myrtles on the left. You can see these inset pictures. This was just recently, in fact yesterday, when this occurred, and all of these were moved from that old house on the east side of the site, and I'll show you that a little later in the video, but quite interesting. The conduit installation and berm widening on the left is really progressing. Here's an interesting couple of observations. There's a lot of steel beams on the ground right in front of those 3 receiving doors, and inside you can tell that that concrete foundation looks like all the concrete has been poured and the forms have been removed. Also, a couple panes of the glass right at this corner have been removed as well, and I'm not exactly sure why. It may be related to some of the machinery that is going to be put into that area where they just finished those foundations. Here is that junction location with these 2 concrete vaults. You can see that concrete has now been poured around kind of the apron to continue that curb around that section, and that kind of indicates that this is very close to being finished. I also noticed on the roof right here, next to these kind of standing items with the boxes for electrical, it looks like the crews are preparing to cut small rectangular holes. Some of the frames are on the right-hand side of the screen, and here you can see some of the holes being cut into the roof. Now, I don't know if this is related to electrical for solar panels or some other purpose, and it'll be something I'll have to come back and take a look at later. As we cross over Tesla Road, a major milestone today up here at the Megapack site, and I can't wait to be able to show you here. But first, we're going to stop and take a look at the materials being stored here next to these trailers. Also, you can see these 2 concrete vaults. That's where the conduit comes up from that building on the northwest corner or northeast corner of the building up to here and continues up to the north. Most of the transformers now have been installed. More of the concrete panels are being installed on the ground, and then the kind of the trenches with that black material and kind of goes on either side of where the Megapacks are going to be. But the big news is some of the Megapacks have now arrived. This is the first time Megapacks have arrived here at Giga Texas. It looks like 6 of them have arrived. As you can tell, there will be 2 Megapacks per each of those transformers. The conduit lines with that black material, you can see how that kind of goes in between the groupings of 2. And I think that's where the electrical connections will be made at some point in the future. But this is 6 of eventually 68 of the Megapacks that will arrive. And as I pull away, this gives you a really good view of how this looks today and how the overall site continues to transform. A lot of work here on the north end with the steel assembly. And also in the middle, there's that formed-in concrete slab section. And nearby, that yellow and white pump truck is just about to get to work to start pouring concrete into that foundation. And we'll see a little bit of that in just a few seconds. But also, I wanted to give you a good close-in view from this vantage point of how the Megapacks looked right now and how this assembly is coming along. And now just imagine this replicated throughout that entire section, and that's what the Megapack site will look like when it's completed. Now, as I turn around back towards the steel structure, you can see that that pump truck has kind of gotten ready for work. You see that foundation on the left, and then all that gravel area, which is sort of roadways that will connect the electrical switchyard to the Megapack site, is well underway. And as I turn back towards the site, I'll give you another view of the Megapacks, the concrete pads, and the transformers, plus those trenches in the middle, and how this site looks today. I'm going to bring the drone up to a higher altitude and try to give you a bird's eye view of how the Megapack site looks today. As I reposition the drone, this is a good overall view of that kind of driveway that's being constructed that will connect the 2 sites. And then also this underground vault and how it looks today on the south end of the electrical switchyard. I'll bring the drone down, give you a good view of how this is shaping up. Looks like about half of the walls now have had their concrete poured, and the crews are getting ready to move the forms to the next 2 sections of concrete. And this is a good overall down-looking view to get an idea of how this appears today and the progress that the crews are making. And it looks like the crane is getting ready to bring even more of the rebar over to the crew at some point. And right now they're setting up the scaffolding so that they can work on the wall panels and the forms that they'll use before they can put the concrete in. But great view here, looking back to the Megapack, how the 2 sites are connected and how this is continuing to make progress. Now, as I turn towards the south, one of the things I want to show you is on the left-hand side of the screen, that conduit that's coming up right on the east side of the temporary electrical switchyard. And this is what's going to proceed towards the south to those 2 concrete vaults, and then it will continue further to the south, and that all connects eventually over to the die shop and the battery cathode complex of structures. So it's great to see how this is really starting to come along as well. Now we're going to continue to fly towards the east. I want to show you where those trees that I mentioned over by the northeast corner of Castine came from. Also, next to this road on the right-hand side of the screen, you see those trees lining the road. Most of those, and the one in the left with that ring with the treemover.com sign, these have all been professionally removed and transplanted by this company. And you can tell this tree right here in the middle is getting ready for its final location or relocation. Now, all of these trees came right next to this old house, including those crepe myrtles I showed you at the northeast corner. This is what it looked like with these inset images of this move yesterday. And all of those trees, again, are right by the casting machine structure. There's a few more trees that will be moved here, but ultimately The whole goal is to be able to finally remove that old house and then continue the graded work on this north end to complete this entire section of the site. Now, as I pull away, there's a lot of materials to be seen here, right? The middle and bottom of the screen, more of that TKS paint system. It looks like some of those dip tanks have arrived. They're in those white wrapped items. And again, more materials in that green and blue wrapping on this side of that material staging. So let's fly over towards the battery cathode plant and let's take a look at some of the big changes going on the east side today. The biggest area of progress continues on this east side of the battery cathode plant with this new structure. We'll start looking on the left-hand side where this underground kind of vault system, it's already had all the concrete poured. Also, it looks like some sort of white piping is being put around the base of that subterranean vault. Also, the walls being constructed here, and then more of the formwork for the rebar and more of the walls. Now, I've had some viewers suggest that this may be sort of a material processing location, sort of raw materials, and I don't know, but that'll be something that I'll continue to watch to find out. Now, this concrete section here that is kind of lower in the middle and higher on the edges is very unique. I'm not sure if this is going to be I don't know, a material catching basin or something else. If you happen to know, let me know. But nearby, the cell test lab and also the underground corrugated steel pipe for the water management system is being installed. And also continued work on that cell test lab roof section and some of the machinery on that west side. But there's a good view overall of this entire east side and how it continues to transform, and all of the new structures that have been put into place on this side of the building. Now, at the north end of the battery cathode plant, we see several developments. All the windows are in pretty much. Next to these receiving doors, we see these two parallel kind of trenches. It looks like there's a section of rebar being put in. I think what they're making are small retaining walls that will define the borders or the edges of that receiving dock location. A good view of the windows and this side of the battery cathode plant. A lot of the activity going on here on this west side, more of the steel corrugated pipe stored on the right. Trenching here in the middle, and this continues right down the middle, down through that alleyway between the two structures. This will eventually connect to the lift station in the north end. And as we continue to get closer to the chiller plant, we see that the crane has been busy today, lifting up some more items. We see a lot of the work going on both on the ground floor, but also on that roof section with all of the pipes and the pumps and the tanks. And it looks like more work being done underneath the Evapco fan units as well. And this will be a good view of how this work looks today. Also, the covered walkway on the right-hand side between the chiller plant and the nitrogen vaporizers. And just to the south of the nitrogen tanks, this concrete section has now been cross-cut, and that helps to eliminate some of the stresses within that concrete section. But this is a good view of how this looks today. And again, I think this is to allow the trucks bringing in the liquid nitrogen to be able to get to the valves. That is my suspicion at this point in time. As we fly further to the south along the alleyway, we see more trenching in the middle here, and also what looks like eventually this is going to be a roadway between those trees. As I turn back towards the die shop, give you a good view from this vantage point. We're still waiting for the windows and the doors to arrive, but it looks like most of the roof section with vents have been installed as well. And then here near this corner on the ground, you can see the black HDPE pipe coming out of the trench. It looks like more work being done in this trench to install that pipe, and then nearby this excavator and white truck are crews doing the fusing of some of those the pipe segments together to make the long HDPE pipe. So this is treated water, so it's most likely related to that lift station that I talked about that will be built on the north side of that complex. So I'm repositioning the drone while we look at the east parking lot because I want to show you two things. First, just how busy the new car staging and transportation lot looks today. Even though it's the last day of the quarter, I think it's because of the Model Y production shutdown for the next 5 days. Also, right at the bottom of the screen, I was checking to see if those superchargers and some of the what I thought might have been Megapacks had been moved. They have not. So those Megapacks up at the Megapack site have been just delivered today. So the tents here are from the end-of-line crews, and you can see just the number of vehicles that they're processing right now, both for the end of the quarter, but also preparing for the Model Y production shutdown that's coming up. The testing and calibration lot is as full and busy as ever, as are the supercharger sites. And then looking at this side of the building, what I wanted to show you is the roundabout and how it looks today. The continued work here in this kind of dirt section next to those receiving doors. It looks like there's some plumbing work with trenching being undertaken today. And then here next to this blue entryway for the workers, we see the trenching for conduit, and on the left, those spools. It looks like the crews are actually starting to route the electrical wires into the conduit now. Speaking of that, this section where the concrete's been removed and the trenching, this is all in preparation to route that conduit through that section and over to the building where it will connect in and be able to allow power to be provided by the electrical switchyard, the new electrical switchyard to the factory. So that's a pretty good wrap up of the site today on this last day of the second quarter here at Giga Texas. So much activity, a lot of progress, and some big milestones, especially up at the Megapack site. I hope you enjoyed the video and the narration. I hope you have a great weekend. And again, thank you very much for your support. Take care.